Yeah.
Hey y'all, here I am back at you again with the first movie review in a long time. Sorry, it's been a very busy past week, but I knew that I had to get on and talk about the latest film from Luca Guadagnino, being Challenger, starring Zendaya, Josh O'Connor, and Mike Faist. And this movie follows three tennis players, two of whom have been best friends since back when they were younger, and it follows their journey over the course of 13 years and the ups and downs of the relationship after they find this woman, a tennis prodigy played by Zendaya, and kind of their quest for lust after her. It's kind of hard to even get into how complex this movie is, but first let me say, in regards to Luca Guadagnino, I think he's a really great filmmaker. I loved Call Me By Your Name when that came out. And I loved even more his 2018 remake of Suspiria, which I find to be far superior than the Dario Argento film from the 70s. And so, of course, I was excited for this movie. It got delayed because of the SAG-AFTRA strike last year, as well as doing part two Zendaya projects that have since been released this year. And I heard a lot of very interesting things. Of course, the fact that the screenwriter Justin Kruitsky's, this is his first true credit on screen, and of course married to Celine Song, who just had Past Lives last year. So I was interested to see what he could bring to the table as a screenwriter. And what I will tell you about Justin Kruitsky's is he really is the star of this movie. I mean, you have the star power in Zendaya, but if you ask me, the screenplay here is what really makes this film soar. Quite frankly, this is one of the most innovative screenplays I have ever witnessed unfold in front of me. The writing here is just razor sharp and extremely well threaded through all these points, because essentially all of this film is done in flashbacks. It's very similar to Oppenheimer in a lot of ways, in the way it's able to jump back in nonlinear fashion to certain periods of time without taking away from the overall narrative and without seeming at all distracting. At least I felt, especially by the time this movie concluded. I was really amazed with how the screenplay was crafted, and I've never seen anything quite like it, because it is focused on this tennis match that is taking place in 2018, and you know, the whole movie, all the events lead up to this moment, and during the match they'll cut back to a specific time and this thruple's sort of coming to be, and it is so indicative of what emotions are playing out on the court, as well as the character dynamics throughout this entire movie. It really does feel like a volley within itself, because as much as this movie is more about these characters' dynamics between each other, it really does play out like a tennis match, because every single time they cut back and forth, it's like you're trying to see who's trying to one-up the other person on the court, who's going to return the next hit, and how are they going to go about it. It is so unbelievably intriguing, and I think that also is a credit to the three leads here in Zendaya, Josh O'Connor, and Mike Faist, who are absolutely electric on screen. I mean, a lot of people have been saying this is one of the sexiest movies ever made, and while there are no sex scenes, I really do feel like what is pulled out of the chemistry of these three is so sensual, and the way they portray, certain scenes without ever crossing over that line fully is unbelievably stimulating in so many ways. But I just think the dialogue from Kruitsky's here is really what draws me in, and I think will draw most people. It is insanely sharp, insanely witty, but also very, very pointed and intentional in a lot of ways. Yet again, the dynamics between these three characters are so clearly defined in every single scene, because this movie really is about manipulation, and and these terrible people just doing terrible things to each other, but you can't take your eyes off them because it is just so electric every single second. And that also is a big prop to the editing here, which I find to be the best editing of the year. I sincerely hope this gets a best editing nomination at the Oscars. And the way these cuts are woven together with some incredibly innovative filmmaking. The cinematography here is truly, truly incredible, and this is the same DP who's done Luca Guadagnino's previous movies, including Bones and All. And there are some shots in here where I think to myself, I'm like, how did they do this? Like, I have an idea how they did it, but it's very reminiscent to me of Citizen Kane. I really mean that, in the way that they went out of their way to create these shots that wouldn't have been able to be possible without a certain setup or a certain set built around it, just to get these incredibly cinematic and savory shots that will stick with me for a long time. And yet again, like, even at certain points on the court, it's almost like there's a camera attached to a tennis ball, and yet when they're volleying back, it's so fluid. And you're just like, how are they able to focus so well on this? And yet again, it's a perfect unison of editing and cinematography and filmmaking from Luca Guadagnino here. It's honestly insane. And there's some shots in this movie that are so well crafted, and I think some of them are done in post, and you'll know what I mean when you see the movie, but they cause for some of the most amazing and powerful moments of the entire year. Just certain ways these shots are put together, and the way these characters are placed within the frame to kind of show their dynamics between each other. It's absolutely incredible. But back to the performers here. Zendaya, of course, has been getting a lot of attention for this, and I think that this is her best role to date. She really brings a maturity and sensuality to this role that I've never yet seen from her, because I've always thought, like, you know, I get people saying Zendaya is attractive, but I've never fully been there myself. After this movie, I was like, Zendaya's sexy as hell. Like, straight up. But even so, I just think the emotional component to her performance is something that's really, really hard to ride that fine line, because you understand how manipulative this character is, and the whole movie you're questioning whether she's getting off on this manipulation, whether this is a conduit for her, or whether she is really trying to get the best out of these two guys. Because you see the trailers, you see the scene when they're in the hotel room, which, by the way, is one of the absolute best scenes in that entire movie. The whole interaction that takes place there is unbelievable in the way the camera pans and moves around. Also, there's just some amazing tracks in this movie that I can't get out of my head. Yet again, I'm going to go off all the way in this review. I'm going to be all over the place, but I think that scene in particular, you know, it's been highlighted in the marketing. It's kind of like, oh, they're going to have like a threesome and these guys are going to run a train on her. That's not really what happens, and you should not be expecting that going into this movie. But I think that scene in particular really sets the course for this entire game, if you will, of tennis, or at least mental gymnastics. As I said, it's very intertwined with the game of tennis itself and how it relates to these characters' dynamics. They're all playing a game in some way, and what they're trying to get at, you really feel like your sympathy shifts throughout the entire film. And another, to me, the absolute standout of the movie is Josh O'Connor, who is easily the most charismatic and devious of the entire bunch, but he's also the most stunted, I feel, in regards to character growth, and that's a big component to his character in this film. But there's no artifice about him. Like, he knows exactly what he is, and he knows exactly who these people are, and the way he tries to bring that out is just so compelling to watch on screen. Absolutely love Josh O'Connor in this, and I can't wait to see him in other stuff. I'm trying to get to La Chimera soon. And Mike Faist, too. Great to see him back in a movie after West Side Story, and I just think he is on the upswing, quite literally. I think he plays a much more subdued role in this, but yet again, he delivers the dialogue with such a tact that the script so necessarily needs and deserves. And he definitely plays an interesting role into the dynamic of these three. And I think really the essential ingredient of this trio in this film and how they control and manipulate each other. And I definitely feel like he's the most sympathetic character, but even then there's moments with him where you're like, man, that was just shitty, dude. So, yet again, that's the thing that I love about cinema, is when you can write characters who are so deeply flawed in so many ways, but still make them accessible and interesting to the audience, where you're engaged in what's happening. It's like a train wreck taking place in front of you, almost like people have called this like a soap opera, or a bit campy in some ways. And I love how Luca Guadagnino kind of elevates that too, because there's a great sense of both the male and female gaze. It's very, very balanced. And there's just certain cuts that he will do to make a scene that much more sexual. It is kind of amazing, because I think most directors wouldn't think to just add that little piece to make the scene feel more complete, or, you know, just to make it stand out a bit more. But he has that visual flair and touch, and yet again goes hand in hand with the editing here. It's absolutely amazing what he's able to craft and create. I can't speak for myself, obviously, but I look at this and I say this is probably bisexual heaven. And you'll see what I mean when you watch the movie, because there's also a component to the film where there's some emotions that may feel a bit unresolved or unearthed, and I think that's really the most interesting part of watching these three kind of figure each other out, and, you know, go behind their backs and do all these like really, really terrible things to each other. I just think it really is such an amazing, amazing film. And also, I have to mention the score from Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, which is easily my favorite score of the entire year. You are going to be bopping your head to this. It is bold, it's brash, it's very techno-driven. The beats here are insane. It really gets your head pounding while you're watching it. You just want to sit there and, you know, listen to these bangers all day and, like, move your head along with the movie. And I assure you, you will be doing that. It really does remind me of peak Nine Inch Nails in the best way possible. So if you are into that, you're certainly going to get behind the soundtrack in this movie. I hope this gets a nomination for Best Original Score, because I think this is the best score they've done yet, to be honest. And I really, really hope that it goes all the way in that regard. Though I will say, one of my small criticisms with the film, I think the score is a bit overused at certain points where these characters will be talking, and I feel like had the music not been so abrasive, and I get that was the point to kind of show the abrasiveness of these relationships and dynamics, but I feel like if they had just let these characters speak without it, it would have played out even more powerfully. But yet again, small criticism, because the soundtrack here and the score is so amazing. There's some really tremendous and tasteful needle drops in this movie as well that really put it over the top for me. And I think what really brings this film together is its final moments more than anything, because throughout the whole movie, when they kept cutting back and forth to all this time, like, I was like slightly confused, and I was like, alright, like, can't we focus on this final tennis match? And then they do, and let me tell you, it is fucking glorious. The final 10 minutes of this movie is just unbelievable from a filmmaking standpoint. A lot of the stuff that I was saying with the camera work and the editing really takes place in these final moments, but the way these character dynamics come together, the way the screenplay plants these certain, you know, moments that are going to be paid off in such a big way later, the ambiguity, the nuance of the script as well. What I really love about it is Luca Guadagnino will show these characters doing specific actions, and they're very subtle. It's not like the film is like, you know, pointing a finger, oh, look at this. It's just showing it on screen and letting it play out, not drawing attention to itself. And it really cues you into who these characters are and why they're doing the things they are doing. And I absolutely love when a movie does not spell it out for you, because I have not been able to stop thinking about Challengers ever since I saw it. And I will say, maybe this is just first time watch syndrome, where I need to watch it again to see how it plays out, because I'm definitely going back to see this. I think that the middle slows down slightly for me, or at least I wasn't as interested in it. And there's just like a couple of small moments that seem a bit off-putting. But other than that, I mean, this is easily the best film Luca Guadagnino has ever done. And I don't think that this is going to be a big Oscar contender come the Oscars next year, but I really think that this should be nominated for Best Original Screenplay, and I think it does have a shot. And, you know, I gotta say, sorry, I mean, I gotta put this above Past Lives. I think Justin Kruitsky wins this set, at the very least, when it comes to being such a wonderful voice that I cannot wait to hear. This guy created one of the most innovatively structured screenplays I've ever seen. And yeah, it's something has to be said about him and Celine Song's insistence on these like very, you know, bizarre love triangles. Are they okay? I mean, I want to know. Let's hope that they are. But yet again, I really do hope that this goes all the way in a lot of regards. I think that this is going to be one of the absolute best movies of the year. This year is insane! Can you imagine if Dune Part 2 and Challengers came out in 2023? I mean, there would be like amazing films that wouldn't have even made my top 10. But as it stands, I mean, movies like Challengers remind me why I love cinema. The kinetic energy, the writing here for all these characters, the nuance therein, so many different things moving at once, coming together to create a very, very cohesive and unbelievable final package that was well worth the wait. And I'm going to give Challengers a 9.5 out of 10. There's no way this doesn't make my top 10 of the year. And I don't know if I will ever give it a perfect score, but it can come pretty damn close. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if this movie does rise for me in estimation by the end of the year when I come back to it, because this movie is so electric that I'm going to keep being drawn back into it over this next year and onwards, because this really is an incredible piece of cinema. And props to the cast, Justin Kruitsky's and Luca Guadagnino, for creating such a masterful piece of cinema. So yeah, guys, that's my review of Challengers. I mean, I hope you were going to go see it after that much of a glowing review. We are really in one of the greatest eras of filmmaking, I think, at least in modern memory. It hasn't been this good in a long time. You know, I don't know what happened the first few years of this decade. I get the pandemic and everything, but these guys have been popping off ever since, and I cannot wait to see what they do next. Literally later this year, we are getting another Kruitsky's and Guadagnino collaboration in Queer, and I really can't wait to see that. But let me know what you thought about Challengers down in the comments below. Is this Luca Guadagnino's best film? Is this one of the best films of the year? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that and more. And of course, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. Going to be bringing a lot more reviews, hopefully soon. Definitely have some that I've been really looking forward to see, and I'll definitely fill you in on those once I get around to them. But in the meantime, you guys have yourself a good week, and I will talk to you very, very soon. Take it easy now.